Hi everyone, my name is Ananya Kapoor, and I started at Stripe as a new grad software engineer in August 2024. Within my first year at Stripe, my manager was willing to put me up for an up level. At Stripe, that means that your manager believes that you've already been operating at the next level for at least 6 months. I was just trying to become the person my team couldn't imagine losing. Today, I want to give you the practical playbook behind that. But before I get into the how, I want to reframe something because I think most people walk into a new role focused on the wrong thing. You got the job, you passed the interviews, they know you have the skills. That is not what you need to prove anymore. What you need to prove is whether you can be trusted, whether you make the people around you better, whether you're willing to show up for things no one asked you to show up for, whether you have an opinion, and whether you're willing to share it. The engineers who advanced fast are not the ones who constantly remind their team of their technical skills. They're the ones who become indispensable. And here's what makes this urgent right now. AI is getting very good at the technical part of the job: writing code, explaining systems, generating tests. It's only getting faster, which means the skills that got you hired are becoming table stakes faster than any of us could have imagined. So the question is no longer, how can you prove that you're technically capable? It is, what do you have that AI doesn't? Let me tell you a story that answers that question. When I joined Stripe, my team loaned me out to another team to help on a project. I could have thought of it as temporary, done what I was asked to do, kept my head down, delivered my tasks, and waited to go back. That would have been completely reasonable and no one would have blamed me. But I didn't do that. Instead, I showed up like it was my team. Like these were my colleagues. Like the work mattered. Because honestly, it did. I tried to understand not just the code base, but the people, what they were working on, what was hard for them, what mattered to them. I focused on being genuinely useful every day in whatever way I could. Not because I wanted to build a reputation, just because that's what good work looks like. 10 months later, when the manager of that team heard I was looking to switch teams, she asked me immediately. She didn't wait, she didn't loop back in 2 weeks. And at the same time, she was willing to nominate me for an up level. That team is now my team. The choice I made early on to not treat it as temporary, to invest fully, even when I didn't have to, is what changed everything. So, what was I doing exactly? There were three moves that compounded over time. Knowing the humans is as important as knowing the code base. Owning things nobody asked me to own. And lastly, asking directly for what I wanted. Let's go through each one of these. When you join a new team, one of the most valuable things you can do in the first few weeks has nothing to do with code. It's getting to know the people, actually knowing them, what drives them, what they're working on, where they come from, what success looks like for them. That is what humans are best at. Every person you work with has context you don't have yet. And when you take time to understand that context, genuinely, two things happen. First, you become dramatically better at your job because you understand why decisions get made the way they do. And second, people trust you because they can feel that you see them more than just a function. Find the people you'll be working with closely and build a real relationship with them. Start with the people closest to your actual work and really understand their world. I was constantly asking designers and PM, what are you working on? What makes your job hard? How can I help? Not to seem helpful or be pretentious, but because I genuinely wanted to know. And believe me, people can sense that. Real curiosity compounds. The questions you ask in month one shape what you're trusted with in month 12. The deeper you go on understanding the people, the better your instincts get about what success actually looks like. Here, what it looked like in practice for me. When I was given the task to be the front end lead on a work stream, I could have treated it as a technical assignment. Here's the scope, here's the spec, go and build it. Instead, I invested real time in understanding why the work was being done the way it was. And that's because it was a new kind of work, and the context mattered enormously. I sat in user meetings, not because people asked me to, but because I wanted to hear directly from the people we were building for. This allowed me to think from the user's perspective, not just the engineering side. Acting as a quasi PM in a lot of ways, contributing to conversations about what we should build, not just how. And that shifted everything. My technical decisions got better because I understood the trade offs in context. I became more useful in every conversation because I had the full picture, because I was willing to tell them what made sense, and not just from the engineering side. People wanted to bring me in earlier into conversations because they knew that I was going to help them figure out what was actually right. And that's what genuine curiosity does over time. It turns you from someone who executes decisions into someone who helps shape them. And this brings me to something genuinely underrated. People want to hear your opinion. Early engineer careers are often taught to stay in their lane. Don't overstep. What I found is that the opposite is true. Designers, PMs, colleagues aren't looking for someone who executes quietly. They're looking for a technical partner, someone who will push back, add something, make the work better. When you show up with a perspective, you become someone worth talking to. When you don't, you're just a pair of hands. It's not whether you share, it's also how. Show that you understand the goal before you offer an alternative. Frame it as a question, not a verdict. Don't say, this design won't work, but I want to make sure this holds up at scale. Can I share what I am seeing on the technical side? Done right, people become extremely appreciative of this skill. They start pulling you in earlier. They want your read on decisions that get made. That's when you stop being the engineer assigned to this project and become someone everyone wants in the room. Principle underneath everything I'm describing is give before you take. The fastest way to build influence is to make yourself useful before you need anything from anyone. Each small act, fix the thing nobody asked you to fix, help with the task outside your lane. It's a deposit into a trust account, and the withdrawals come later. They come easily because the account is full. Here's what that looked like for me. Our PM was deeply passionate about a feature that required a design that our internal library did not support yet. We'd be the first team to execute it, setting the pattern for every team that came after this. The stakes were real. I spent weeks on it, testing approaches, understanding constraints, figuring out what was actually possible. And here's something I want to call out because it gets left out of these talks. Not everything is feasible. Not every design is implementable exactly as drawn. And that's part of being a good software engineer, relaying that information to your team clearly, honestly, and most importantly, early. Pushing back is not a failure to deliver, it's a service. It means you understand the problem deeply enough to know where the gaps are. I pushed back on some approaches, explained the trade offs, and then I found a way to match what the team actually needed. The team's confidence in me dramatically shifted after that. Not just because I shipped something hard, but because they'd seen how I worked through that deeply, honestly, and following through with everything that I did. That combination is what builds trusts that lasts. So when I eventually joined the new team permanently, I now had a fresh challenge. Building trust with people I'd never shipped before as a full team member. I had worked with some of them, but not all. What I did? I paid attention. I noticed that the on call process had friction baked in. Nothing dramatic, just slow. So I talked to people, found the bottlenecks, worked on fixing it, and delivered. I was deliberate about communicating the progress in team meetings, sharing where things stood, what had changed, on Slack, sharing what was coming. And this was not to promote myself. This was to keep people in the loop, to be someone who says they'll do something and then goes and does it. That work is something that I continue to own today. One gap, noticed, fixed, communicated. I wasn't asked by anyone to do this. The relationships that came from it were completely organic. I now want to come back to something that I said at the start. AI is getting genuinely good at the technical part of our jobs. Right now, it can write code, explain systems, generate tests, propose architecture. It's getting better every day, every hour, honestly. Which means that the things that got you hired is no longer the thing that will make you indispensable. We said at the beginning, they already know you have the skills. That is more true now than ever, because now AI also has the skills. So the question is, what do you have that AI doesn't? You have the PM who trusts your read on a trade off because you sat in user meetings you weren't asked to. You have the designer whose feature you spent weeks getting right because you took it seriously. You pushed back honestly, but you delivered. You have the manager of a team you were only borrowed to help, who asks you to join permanently the moment she hears you might be available because you chose not to treat it as temporary. And months of that choice built something that no model can manufacture. AI cannot build these relationships. AI cannot notice the friction nobody named and decide to fix it. AI cannot make the people around it better simply by being genuinely curious about what they're working on. The humans who get remembered are the ones who figured out how to be irreplaceable, not technically, humanly. And that is what this is about. All of that only creates leverage if the right people can see it, though. And making your work visible is itself a skill. Not self promotion, just clear communication. This is extremely important. A simple weekly sync with your manager. Here's what I shipped, what I learned, what I'm unsure about, what I'm planning. Does this match your expectations? Ask for feedback often and ask for it early. Don't wait until it's too late. Give them a Slack update that gives context, not just status. These are not performances. They're information your team needs to trust you with more. And the most underrated move, tell people directly what you want. Not a hint, a specific direct conversation. I want to own this work stream. Here's why I'm ready. Here's how I'll do it. Most engineers wait to be recognized. And this is not just engineers, this holds true for everyone, honestly. They assume that their manager is tracking their ambitions without being told. That's the slow path. Empty mouths do not get fed. When I said I wanted to make the switch permanent to the team, the manager who had watched what I'd built over months did not hesitate. She went above and beyond to make it happen in record time. When I asked to be nominated for an up level, she did not hesitate again. And that's what months of giving first, combined with one clear, direct ask, actually looks like in practice. Luck finds people who make themselves easy to find. So, there are three things I want you to take with you. The first is knowing the humans is as important as knowing the code base. Get to know the people closest to your work. Really know them. Sit in the meetings you didn't have to sit in. Think from the user's perspective, not just the engineer's. That's the foundation everything else is built on. Then, own things nobody asked you to own. There is friction everywhere. Give before you take. Find the gap, fix it, and communicate the progress. Push back when you need to, though. That's part of the job. And never treat an opportunity as temporary just because it was handed to you that way. Lastly, ask for what you want directly. Empty mouths do not get fed. Make your ambitions legible to the person who can help you. The ask only lands because of everything that came before that. Your first few weeks on a new team can define your trajectory for years. Not because of how impressive your first PR was, but because of the relationships you invested in the gaps you decided to own, and the choice you make about whether to show up fully, even when not asked to. We're in a moment where the technical floor keeps rising and AI keeps raising it. Double down on the parts that cannot be automated, the relationships, the judgment, the trust you build. The humans who get remembered are the ones who AI cannot replace. Be one of those. Thank you so much.